Stacey the Blackfeather Intuitive, and welcome to Divinely Decked Tarot and Oracle Reviews done Stacey style. And today we are exploring what card decks really connect with the astrological sign of Gemini from my collection. And I am a Gemini moon, so I really went into that aspect of myself in order to be able to pick out these decks and share them with you. And of course, Gemini energy, I want to say, really is about that duality, that communication, inspiration, so much from an air perspective, so much going on in the realm of the mind, the mental energy, and how you're able to connect intuitively with all of that information that is running around in your head. A lot of smarty pants McGee's are Geminis. So let's explore the three decks that I've chosen, and you can let me know if you think I got it right or if I missed the mark on it. So without further ado, let's get to it. So here we have the very first one that I chose is the Tarot of the Guiding Muse. This is by Ted Sue, and I absolutely love this deck. You can order it directly from him. That's how I got this deck. I don't even remember how I came across it or found it, because he's not on Kickstarter that I saw. I've never seen any of his stuff before, but somehow I came across it and I was like, oh yes, this looks like a lot of fun. In fact, you know what? I think it might have been someone else's deck review. And this feels very Gemini to me. First of all, it's very black and white, so showing the duality of the sign. And then, of course, you've got these beautiful pops of color. The colors, I won't say they're muted, but I want to say the colors are done in such a way that they're not overpowering. And I love even just this line, let her journey kindle your introspection. So I feel like that's very much a Gemini sort of experience, you know? It's got a beautiful guidebook that I absolutely love. And here's why. This is a little bit different. The journey that he takes us on, the journey, and she is, I forget what her name is, but she has a name, and we follow her through her journey. Emmy, that's her name, Emmy. We follow through her journey. So Emmy begins her journey with the Fool. It's a very simple message: upright, beginnings, innocence, adventure; reversed, carelessness, hasty, holding off. She stands on the edge of a floating island, her loyal cat at her side. Emmy stretches in preparation for the adventure ahead. Without a care in the world, she doesn't have a plan to reach the islands behind her. We'll figure it out when we get there. And I love this because Geminis are very much about inspiration. Yes, they can overthink, they can overanalyze, they can get in their heads about things. But ultimately speaking, everything that I want to say inspires them or kind of rules the roost with them tends to be that an inspiration that comes into their head. And some Geminis will give a lot of thought to it. Other Geminis will be, I want to say, a little more traditional to their element and be a little more spontaneous about things. But ultimately, when they're making decisions to move ahead into something, it's because they're giving it a lot of thought. It's because they've kind of analyzed what has transpired, and is this going to work for you? They're fun. Geminis are great. They can go out and run in the fields and have a great time with you. They can also be really focused. Sometimes almost too focused. And I speak from experience here. Sometimes I can get obsessively focused on what's going on. They love color. They love hard work. They love a goal to work towards. They can seem more extroverted, and they also need that introverted sort of recharge. So a lot of Geminis, you'll find that they're, what do they call that? Ambivert. Introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert, because again, the sign is typically thought of as moody. I would say to you, it's not about moody. It's not about, changing your mind. It's about recognizing that you're receiving a lot of information at any given time. It takes a lot to recognize what you're receiving and to process through it. And so you're always looking at, I want to say, both sides of a situation. You're always kind of evaluating if this, then that. And, I want to say it takes up a lot of mental energy, which is why you'll find, Geminis tend to be pretty chatty. They need to talk out what it is that they're experiencing, what it is that they're seeing or feeling inside. And they're going to take some time to process it before they dive on in. Now, that Knight of Swords energy, just as I'm looking at it, it is very impulsive. It's very in your face. And when a Gemini makes up their mind about something, oh boy, look out. It's actually going to happen. But they may change their minds, I want to say, a little bit in the process in terms of the approach to things. And you always want to understand that a Gemini has their own plan, and they're not necessarily always going to explain themselves to you to share what that plan is, but trust and know that they're always going to get to where it is that they want to go, because they are, I want to say, well equipped. They don't have a problem, sort of dancing in the shadow as well as in the light, and getting, I want to say, the benefits of both of those, right? Being in the light as well as being in the shadow. I love that this deck in particular shows through color when a card is leaning more into the light and the extroversion and the, I want to say, sort of that divine masculine energy, and when it is more reflective of the divine feminine, that moon energy. And we see that a lot depicted in this deck. This is an excellent quality card stock as well. It's on a beautiful linen card stock, and it's really quite high quality. And I think that speaks to, a Gemini approach to things as well. As, yeah, you can be barefoot and, dancing down and dirty with the rest of them, but there also needs to be a purpose behind it. There needs to be, some sense of the reasoning why. Geminis, I feel, don't do anything unless they really understand what their why is. And this deck really shows that. I also love the modern approach that this deck takes. So you're seeing Emmy in real life situations. For example, we'll look at Temperance. She's sitting on her couch. Her cat is curled up next to her. She's opened the windows up. There's wind coming in. So she's, kind of blowing out the stale energy, the stagnant air that has been in her apartment. She's getting a little sun on her face, but she also is recognizing, I don't have enough energy to actually go out into the world. I really just want to sit here and curl up on the couch with my cat. So I'm going to do a little bit of both. I'm going to figure out a creative way to get my needs met in that regard. The Wheel of Fortune, she's an acrobat here. I think Cirque du Soleil, there's a name for this practice. And I believe it or not, I actually know a few people who've done it, and I can't think of the term of it now, but learning how to, jump within the hoops and work within the hoops. It's really quite fascinating. I am not athletically inclined at all, so you're never going to see me do this kind of stuff, but I have a great appreciation for those that do. Here is the Four of Wands. Again, a kind of a modern take on this. There's no one else in the picture. She's on her own with her little kitty cat. She's happy as a clam, willing to acknowledge for herself a celebration, a graduation, if you will, into the next level of, foundation for herself. She's established something new for herself, and she's finding her own way to be able to celebrate that. The Empress, sitting in her own wooded area. It's a unique hill, that she's on. The chair is unique. She's bringing a lot of her own energy to it, and she doesn't really give a fig for, whether people like it or not. This is kind of her jam. It's her domain. Here we're seeing the 10 of Coins, a little beach vacation, arriving at the beach vacation. Here she's in the sun, coming out of the ocean, waving high, excited about, somebody maybe that she's going to be meeting on the beach. Here's the beautiful moon card. So we're seeing these two juxtaposed. Here she's in a beautiful long gown. We're seeing I want to say, kind of the past reflected in the moon here, but she is overpowering the past. She's paying attention to the reflections in the water in her now, paying attention to her feelings and emotions and what that all entails. The Tower. So here we have a tower that isn't burning down. It's actually kind of like burning up, and she's having to make the decision, okay, do I stay or do I go? How do I, so how do I kind of escape from this? I can escape, it's going to hurt, but I can escape and I can survive, as this transpires. Nine of Swords, this one always really stands out to me. She's in this bathroom with all of these, it feels like graffiti. It feels like being in a public restroom, and she's all dressed up. She's looking great, but she's in this kind of seedier kind of space, and she's looking in the reflection, and she's trying to find herself in the reflection of all of it. This isn't exactly where she wants to be. This isn't what she thought it was going to, be all about. We have the duality of the heart broken into two spaces on her dress. I just love the approach to this. And I feel like, Geminis often can be old world meets new world, 1 foot in the old, 1 foot in the new. This feels like a very modern approach to, it's based on the RWS system, but it's a very modern approach to it. And so very relatable, very adaptable. And yet you've got the beauty of the colors. It's very clear what each of the cards sort of stands for. There are some beautiful, fantastical approaches, as well as some, cards that you kind of need to go a little deeper in to understand the messaging. And that's really what Gemini is about, is the deeper layers to everything. It's not necessarily what's on the surface. There's a lot more to a Gemini, and you need to be able to hang by having conversation, deep conversation, something that is, I want to say, intellectually stimulating, things that can generate conversation for hours and hours, and the conversation just flows, and it's connective and engaging. And I feel like that's really what this deck is all about. It's very connective and engaging. You can fall into each of these images and really get something out of it, and get something different out of it every single time. And that's really what it's about when you're connecting with a Gemini. There's so much to talk about. They're fascinating people. They really do things that, maybe go against the grain a little bit, and they do that on purpose, because, ultimately they're here to inspire people to think a little bit outside the box. And that's exactly what this Tarot of the Guiding Muse really brings to the table. So this deck, to me, over any of the other decks that I have, really kind of shouted to me about that Gemini energy. Okay, the next deck that I've chosen here is the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck from Kim Krans. And I chose this because Geminis tend to be really intelligent, really like mentally, like they get bored easily. Yes, they can small talk with the best of them, but they don't really find a lot of small talk engaging, unless it's really fun or quippy, or I want to say eventually like serves a deeper purpose, gets to the heart of it, kind of like icebreakers that eventually open people up. And the Archetypes Guidebook, the Wild Unknown Kim Krans, this one's, very well known. This is kind of heady. It does open things up. Here we have the mother, and we're seeing a picture of the womb, the great mother, the feminine, the source. It gives you a description that is a little headier. We begin our archetypal story with the mother's love. Through her sensual, fertile, and life-giving energy, all creation takes form. Regardless of our birth story, each of our hearts beat for the first time in the warm womb of the mother, where she offered resources from her body for the building of our own. Yet her tale is not so simple, as the mother, especially on the earthly plane, contains both light and dark aspects of the feminine. With the best of intentions, the mother wraps her loving arms around her creations and begins to grip what she's meant to set free. The mother both nurtures and prohibits growth. She gives yet clings. She creates yet restricts. Amid this complex energy, the mother holds the key to the eternal challenge of love. So you can see very clearly right away, this is not a deck that is light and fluffy and fancy free. This is a deck that you're really going to want to take some time with. You're going to want to understand that it's not going to be obvious. It's not going to be the type of deck and the type of guidance that's going to necessarily even make you feel good. But it's definitely the type of messaging and information that's going to give you the heart of it and give you different perspectives to look at and to review. You know, that Gemini energy is really that communicative space that we all need. And Geminis, you know, when you need to talk something out, find a Gemini friend. I mean, guaranteed you're going to be able to see all sides of a situation. You're going to be given quite a bit of insight into each of those paths. And, you know, Geminis, I mean, of course, it's a general reading. Every Gemini is different based on, you know, what's in their chart. But Geminis typically really do want to help. They want to know that what they're giving you is making a difference. And then, you know, what you choose to do with it is on you. They're not going to judge you based on whether you take their guidance or their advice or not. They're just happy to give it. And whatever you choose to do, they leave there knowing that they've made a difference. They've served a purpose. I also love that these cards are rounded, so they're a little bit different, right? And Geminis are a little bit different. Not quite so different like Aquarians who beat to the tune of their own drum, but Geminis really like to, well, here's a great card for a Gemini, right? The mask, right? Here's what's really going on inside, and here's the mask that I'm showing, that duality. They really enjoy, and I want to say that's their wheelhouse, is to be in a dual state of situations. They're fine to be in the thick of things because they get information about every aspect of a situation and a dynamic. They also really enjoy getting to know a person and to understand how a person ticks. That's a big part of I would say, the communication piece with a Gemini. If you're not going to talk, if you don't have much to say, I mean, they can fill the space. You know, they definitely can, you know, a true dyed-in-the-wool Gemini can talk your ear off and you know, give you a lot of insight and wisdom and make you feel really, I want to say, comfortable in a lot of ways. But eventually, if they're just talking about nothing, that gets pretty boring. And a Gemini is not going to, I want to say, really engage with people on a deep level if that's all there is. So, you know, yeah, they can talk your ear off, but it's also, they want you to talk to, you know, they want to hear your thoughts, your opinions, what is coming up for you. I also am loving that this deck, because of the roundness of it, it brings you full circle. And when we're talking about the duality of Gemini, it's also connected to moon energy, and it's an air sign. And so I feel like the moon, right? The shape of the moon, things coming full circle, not being afraid to look at the dark and the light of a situation. The sun, the roundness of the sun. So from a subconscious level, this deck also, I feel, speaks to very much to that Gemini quality that we have. And then just, again, the communication of it, when you're looking at these images, you go deep, the unseen, you know, like you can get lost in this. You can meditate on this. It's heady, it's weighty, it's intelligent. This is not a deck that you can just, you know, throw stuff away with. You got to take your time. You got to be prepared to sit with this. You know, even just the imagery here, like there's so much imagery that shows that duality, the black and the white. And I just love that. I think it's an excellent representation of what it means to connect with a Gemini energy and a Gemini heart. So that is the Krim Kranz's archetypes. A lot of people don't like this deck because of the roundness of the cards or whatever. You know, I say, figure it out. The information is so good that it's worth a shot. The third deck that I chose here is one that I don't think I've featured on my channel yet, or maybe I've just featured it once, but it's the Luminous Humanist Oracle cards from Kelly Sullivan Walden. Artwork by Layla Savalanian. I hope I'm saying that. Savalanian. Lanin. So this deck is beautiful. It is I believe it's a hay house. No, it's a blue angel. I apologize. I haven't seen this one featured on a lot of people's channels. It is mass market. But I chose this for Gemini because it really shows the juxtaposition of, I want to say, like starseed in a human body having a human experience, or us being in a spiritual, being a spiritual being having a human experience. And I feel like that's kind of a lot of what this deck talks about. Bearable lightness of being. If you keep doing only the things you can handle, you will not be able to push the borders of impossibilities. Try to do the things which are beyond your powers. Change your frontiers, create new ones. Mantra: every day I develop my spiritual stamina so I can handle higher gradations of love and light. Like, just the fact that I even opened up to that particular page talks about the energy and the aspect that this deck offers. So it's kind of it's a little thinner in terms of Oracle deck size, but it is the same kind of length of an Oracle deck. Beautiful, high quality. We've got a rose petal finish. The imagery in here is beautiful. Backstroke through the river of gold. Turn up your radiance dial. So here we have, again, symbolism that is used that indicates intelligence, going beyond what you see and really tapping into how you're going to feel about it. Narrow of your marrow. I love this one. You have to really go deep into the imagery of this in order to kind of understand what it means. Yes, you can read the book and the description in the book, of course, but it's heady, it's weighty. It encourages you to use your intuition to connect with the message of the deck. Fountain of Youth. So Fountain of You, and then the TH at the end. I just think it's brilliant. And the imagery is beautiful. You're seeing a lot of beauty and softness. You're getting a lot of this gentle energy, but then you're seeing warrior, not a worrier. So the languaging, the communication of the card gives that, I want to say, a little bit of that juxtaposition of what's going on. Living and loving in the fifth dimension. This is very much like Geminis really need to recharge. You're so out in the world. You're so expressive. People are leaning on you for all sorts of different things. That this is the kind of thing that's really important. Recharging your batteries and finding really solid ways to do that so that you're not having a problem with it in the world, but not of it. Here she is dancing on this beautiful mountaintop. High frequency, more frequently. This feels very Gemini to me too. We've got the electricity, the static electricity, the lightning, indication of inspiration that is happening. Being in that higher level frequency where not everybody is able to join you or get to where it is that you're going. The imagery is very beautiful. The colors, I feel, work with just about any situation that you're dealing with. And I feel that in many ways, Geminis can be extremely adaptable because of that energy. Invite your shadow to the party. Very Gemini in its approach. There is no there. Oh, to be sovereign. This feels very Gemini to me too, like kind of going all out, bringing a lot of, I would say, I don't mean to say like Gemini's your drama. I don't mean that at all. I just mean sometimes Geminis like to bring a little drama to the situation because they get bored doing the same thing over and over again. They need a little variety. Geminis sometimes can be a bit fickle because they do get bored. So I love this because it's like, okay, I'm playing this role. Oh, to be sovereign. I'm playing this role, but I can also be sovereign in jeans and a t-shirt at the same time. Process of illumination. Loving this. Me being a Gemini moon, I really enjoy variety. I enjoy doing things a little bit differently, switching things up. I don't like to do the same thing by rote over and over and over again. It kind of dulls my senses. And I feel like, again, I'm only a Gemini moon. If you're an actual Gemini, definitely put it in the comments if you can relate to that. Yes, there's a certain comfort that comes in knowing what's coming next or knowing what you need to do next. But over time, it's just not enough. It just doesn't light your fire and float your boat. It's not intellectually stimulating, intuitively stimulating, and you start to just feel disconnected. This deck, I feel, really helps with every card. Every card is a little bit different. Every card gives a different experience and really taps into those areas where I feel that the Gemini heart needs to switch things up. But you don't need to switch things up just for the sake of switching it up. You need to do it because there's some level of purpose that needs to be fulfilled. And that is how you feel fulfilled. So yeah, bearable lightness of being. That was the card that we read from. Prim tab. Very interesting. Iridescent opalescence. Oh, so gorgeous. This feels very Aries to me as well. Gemini to me as well, with all of the air sign energy that's coming through. They glisten when you listen. That's true. When a Gemini talks, people do listen. Thy will be done. Okay, so that is our Divinely Decked for today. As always, sending you guys so much love. I enjoyed sharing this, version of Gemini from my card collection with you guys. Would love to hear your thoughts. If you're a Gemini and you agree or disagree, would love to hear that, or if there are any other decks that you would like to offer. As always, until we see each other for another episode, I am sending you lots and lots of love. We'll see you on the flip side, and transform well. That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. It was great to connect with you guys. Please like, subscribe, and comment for more content like this. And feel free to follow me on Blue Sky for even more content every single day. Can't wait to see you guys next week for another installment of Black Feather Couture, Divining the VIP Life.